Hi everyone and welcome back to Dev Portal, your go-to channel for mastering database concept. In today's tutorial, we are diving into an essential feature in PostgreSQL, the cursor. We will cover what cursors are and when to use them, and then we will see how we can use cursor for iterative operation and some practical examples to understand their functionality in a better way. So let's get started. So let's start our today's discussion with a question: what are cursors? In PostgreSQL, a cursor is a database object used to retrieve query result one row at a time rather than fetching the entire result set at once. This makes cursor very helpful when we are iterating over large dataset without loading all the rows into the memory, and it will perform row by row operations on the result set, which will result optimizing memory usage, especially for the complex queries. Now the question arises that why we need to use cursor. Then one thing is that it is very effective when working with the large dataset and very useful for procedural operations such as loops in PL/SQL blocks. And it is ideal for batch processing or when we are working with the logic that required row by row operations. So now before we see that how we can create cursor, let's discuss the basic life cycle of a cursor. It will start with the declaration part where we will define cursor with the query it will iterate over, and then we need to open the cursor to execute the query. And then we will fetch our result, or you can say that we will retrieve the rows from the cursor one row at a time or in the form of batches. And then finally, once our work is completed, we need to close the cursor to release the resources to the database. So this is the basic life cycle of a cursor. Now let's look at an example where we will create a cursor to iterate over the employees table and we will print their details. As you can see, I have written one select query for the employees table which will fetch all the records from this table. First let me run this query. And same thing we are going to do with the help of cursor as well. So if I run this query, so here you can see we have total 15 records. Now same operation we are going to do with the help of functions and cursor. Let me go to the next step where I have written the script for that. As you can see in the screen, I have created a function with the name iterate employees, and inside this function I have declared the cursor with name emp_cursor with the query that is select empid first name, last name and salary from public.employees table. And then I have defined one emp_record, that is the record which will help me to restore the row that is coming from my query, or you can say from a cursor, to this records object. And then I have opened the cursor at line number 9. As you can see, open emp_cursor, which will open the cursor and then execute the query which we have written. And then finally what we will do, we will fetch the records using the cursor, that is fetch emp_cursor into the emp_records. What it will do, it will fetch one row from the cursor, and that is the one row at a time, and then we will put that row into this records object, and then we will use this record object to print our details in the screen. And then we have written exit when not found. What this line will do, it will stop the loop when all the rows are fetched, which means nothing is left in the cursor. That is written at line number 13. And then finally, once our work is done, as you can see at line number 19, I have written close statement with the cursor name, which will release the cursor after the use. So this is how we can define our cursor in the PostgreSQL blocks and we can use it. Now first let me create this function and then we will run this function and we will see that this cursor is working or not. So first let me create this function, or before creating let me show you here. If I refresh functions here, so you can see nothing is there. Now what I will do, first let me create this function. So this function got created. Now again let me refresh this function block. And now you can see iterate employees function is reflecting here. Now what I will do, as this is a function, I need to write the select query to run this function. So I will write select star from, and I need to write the function name first, and while using this function or calling this function, it will run the cursor inside that function. So let me select this command and let me run it. So you can see as output I got true, because at line number 20 I have mentioned return is true, and you can see the return type is also text. And if I go to the message box here, you can see here we have mentioned raise notice, which will print all the details in this screen. So you can see here employee ID 5, then name, and then salary is coming. As I have not mentioned the order by clause, so because of that it is not coming in the sequential order. Let me do that as well. So here what I will do, I will just write order by, and I need to mention emp_id. Let me save this function again. And as you know, I no need to delete this function because I have written create or replace. So as already this function exists in my DB, it will get replaced. This thing already I have explained in my previous tutorial of functions. If you didn't watch that video, you can watch it out. Link I will give you in the I section. So now let me run this script first. So function again got created. Now let me run this query again. And now if I go to the message box, you can see it is coming 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 15 records are there. And for last name, you can see null is there because last name is not present for that particular employee ID. You can see it here. And if I want to verify salary as well, suppose for employee record 10, it is 47487. If I go to here, so it is 47487 for employee ID 10. So it is working fine. It is printing all the details of the employees in a correct way. So this is how we can create a cursor, or you can say define a cursor inside a PL/SQL block. This is one of the example of cursors. Now we will see how we can use the cursor to update the employee records. What we will do, we will again create one function, and inside that function we will define a cursor, and that function will take one threshold value, that is the employee's salaries. If a condition is satisfied, in that case we will provide a bonus to that employee. So let me show you the script first. So here, as you can see, I have created a function that is update higher salary employees. So what is first parameter? That is the threshold salary. If that condition is satisfied, if an employee's salary is greater than this value which I have provided, in that case I will provide the bonus, as you can see it here. So here what I did, first I fetch all the records which satisfy that condition. You can see salary is greater than threshold, and then what I did, I just written the update query. So with this, what is happening, as if you remember in functions I told that we can use functions to update the records as well, which same operation we are doing with the help of procedure. Just the one thing is that the difference between procedure and function is that procedure will not return any value to us, but function will. So what I did, once my operation is successful, or you can say the execution is successful, I have written true. So I know value should get updated in my DB, or it should reflect the new records or updated records. So we will do the same thing with the help of functions as well. This is one of the example. So here what I did, I have written the update query, that is update public.employees, and I have written set salary is equal to employee's current salary plus bonus for the particular employee. Now let's see this function is working or not with the help of cursor. So first let me create this function, and function got created. If I refresh it here, so now you can see another function is reflecting, and now what we will do, we will call this function. So I will write select, I will mention star from, and let me copy the name of this function, and I need to provide two parameters. Suppose I have provided 50,000, that is the first parameter, that salary should be greater than 50k, and second parameter is that I want to provide suppose 1000 as a bonus. So if I go to this screen, what I will do, let me write one query here first, or let me update the query. I will write where condition as well, where salary should be greater than 50k. If I run this query, so as you can see in the screen, we have total 7 records. So ideally when we run our function with the help of cursor, it should update 7 records. So let me go to that function. Function already we have created, just we need to run the select statement. So let me run this statement, and you can see true has come. If I go to the message box, you can see total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 records got updated, and updated salary is also printing. So let's verify for employee ID 9 what was the previous salary. So if I come here for employee record 9, it is 63525, and now it is 64525. So plus 1000 is reflecting in my DB as well. So with this, what we have done, we have created a function with the help of cursor which will update the employee's record. Let me tell you one more thing is that we can also manage cursor explicitly in enormous PL/SQL blocks without defining them before our overhead. Let me tell you how. If I go to the next step, here you can see I have just declared the block, and inside that block I have defined my cursor. I have defined what query it is going to execute, and I have defined the role as well, that it will print the employee's detail again. But if you remember in my previous example, that is the first example, I have created a function to do this same operation, but this time we will just execute the block. So what does it means? That it is not necessary you first create a function and then you will use the cursor. You can just create your block as well and you can use that cursor. So let me do one thing here as well. First let me write order by clause. So I will do order by emp underscore id. Let's run this block, and once I run this block it will print the details. Let me show you. You can see it here, it is printing 15 details. So this time what we did, rather than creating a function and then calling the function, we just run the PL/SQL block. So this is also one of the examples that how we can use the cursor in PostgreSQL blocks. Now let's discuss some of the best practices while working with a cursor. The first thing that we need to remember is that we should avoid cursor for simple queries where set-based operations are more effective. What does it mean? That if it is possible that we can do our operation with the simple queries, we should avoid cursor in that case. We no need to create the cursor because it will create some overhead to our development. And the second point is that always close the cursor after use to free up the resources. And one more thing is that we need to write effective queries for the cursor to minimize the result set size. For that we can use limit and where clause to restrict the data retrieved by the cursor. So these are some of the best practices while working with a cursor. To summarize, cursor are used to retrieve query result one row at a time, making them useful for large dataset and row by row operations. We explore how to declare, define, fetch and close cursors in PostgreSQL block. And we have seen some practical examples with demonstration that how we can use cursors for iterative and conditional operations. In our next tutorial, we are continue exploring PostgreSQL features, so please stay tuned. And if you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates. Comment below your questions or ideas for the future tutorials. And thanks for watching today's video on Dev Portal. I will see you in the next video.